Happy New Year. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas. But, during the holiday season, I actually was around the time that I got this R7. When I got this R7, it I felt like I had made a mistake. It's because it just wasn't as smooth as the Ninja, and it was just having a lot of problems on the road with suspension wise, the way it felt. That's when I realized from my mountain biking days that, hey, this suspension isn't tuned for me. That's also when I realized I really don't know how to properly set this bad boy up. And so I work with a gentleman named Dave Moss. Now, I don't know if y'all have heard of him or not, but he has his own YouTube channel. You got to go check it out. He's kind of known for people coming to him to set their suspension up, to get it set up like really well. I would say for sure professionally. He did like such an amazing job on this bike. I mean, I'm not going to steal the thunder of this conversation that we had, but I recorded this conversation and I wanted you guys and girls to be able to see it. And this conversation is a conversation around suspension that I think beginners would like to know. And these are also questions that beginners should be asking. So check out this two-part, conversation. Think about it as a beginner working with a professional about motorcycle suspension and just the importance behind it. And yeah, just check that out and take a look at Dave's stuff. And if you got a bike that's feeling like it's not right, I think you're gonna benefit from working with Dave. He didn't pay me. He made me pay full price, by the way. I just thought that this would bring so much value to y'all that I had to get it done.
Thanks for joining this call. I know you helped me set up my suspension. I'm a newer rider. I've been riding for a little over a year. I started with a bike that didn't have adjustable suspension, moved to a bike that had, I guess, in my opinion, world-class suspension. It's a Yamaha R7, a very adjustable. But I noticed immediately when I got on the bike, it felt really bad. And I thought maybe I made a mistake buying a more expensive bike. But I thought maybe it's the suspension. So I looked around, I heard a lot of good things about you, reached out to you. And I mean, I just had such a good time riding this bike since then. And so you've been so gracious to agree to do this for the viewers and really help have a conversation about how much suspension can make a big of a difference on a bike. So I just wanted to, go over a few questions, 6 super simple questions. And, with that being said, Dave, for people who don't know about you and what you do, could you just tell us a little bit about, what you do for the motorcycle community?
Yeah, since '95, I've been helping people with motorcycles, fit them to them because everybody's anatomy is different. Set their weight to the motorcycle correctly so they're not too stiff and it's not too soft, so it rides where it should to make it comfortable. Then I've been setting suspension up based on ability, so that based on how you ride and the way you ride, if you commute versus you go out on the weekends versus you want to go try some track riding, suspension needs to be set differently for that. And then help people with tires, tire wear, tire pressures, because when you buy a bike, there's a sticker on that bike for that tire. But what happens when you change the tire?
Right.
Does that information on the sticker become appropriate? So if it's not appropriate, why are you using the same pressure?
That's a very good point. And I think as beginner riders, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will go on the forums, they'll go on YouTube, and they're here. One of the first upgrades they need to make is a tire change. And I don't think they really think about, because I didn't think about it until we had a conversation, that tire pressure actually impacts the suspension, not only how much it handles from a sticky perspective, but an actual suspension perspective. So that's a good point. Why did you start doing this, for the motorcycle community? What really drove you to start doing this?
I had finished my rugby career. I was told if I got hit hard again by a 300-pound athlete that my spine would probably detach from my hip. So I trained hard for 3 more years and got 3 more years out of it, but I wanted something else to do. I was almost born in a sidecar, so I've had an attachment to motorcycles most of my life. And I ended up at a racetrack just hanging out with some friends. And then once I got a motorcycle, I built it from a series of boxes because I wanted to know that that bike was perfect if I was going to go ride it on track, because it wasn't a brand new bike from the manufacturer.
Right.
But I spent a year listening to guys that I fed with scotch and beer talking about what I needed to do, period. And so they gave me two pieces of information: suspension and tires, repeatedly, month after month after month. So I forced an internship in a motorcycle suspension company
Yeah,
so that I could fix for free my motorcycle
that's
and
smart.
test and build and test and build and fail. I am not a great rider. I've competed in nationals, but I'm not a great rider, so it never became a career for me. So the only way to win was to have a motorcycle I handled perfectly. So I figured that out, that every time I got better, I had to change something, not necessarily fix it, but change it. So, for example, with your R7, when you ride around, you enjoy it, it's fun, it's comfy, but then you pick the pace up a little bit on the weekends and you're feeling good, the sun's out, and the bike doesn't handle the same. Why
Right.
is that? So there's a methodology here where I provide on Instagram, YouTube, website, Facebook, all kinds of information for free for you to be a critical thinker, not just take what everybody else says,
Yeah.
read it, but then go, how is this useful for me? So instead of taking opinion, I provide you with a pathway to use, which you took advantage of. And it served you well so far, both in the net result with the bike, but it's also
Oh yeah.
very, very instrumental in you having a perspective, which is now you sharing your learning with all new riders, which is critical, because the bottom line is, as a new rider, everybody thinks they're too slow, and it doesn't matter.
Mm.
And that's where the problem lies, because you come into a situation where you have to brake hard, for example,
Yeah.
and the bike bottoms out and you crash.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, you brought up a few key things. So first of all, I want to make sure that I let everybody know I'm gonna link your website and your YouTube, because that's how I first found out about you. I'm gonna link that up in this video for sure. And then also for the people that are watching, I'm gonna just say, make sure you subscribe, because I'm gonna do a more in-depth video about the suspension, about how it performed before. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit, but just go a lot deeper into the suspension and what it really meant for me, and how the R7 handles. But you brought up a great point, and you talked about how it changed for me. And I guess the best thing I can say is, when I first got the motorcycle and it wasn't tuned right, I took it into a route that I took my Ninja into before, and I knew that barely touching the bike, barely pushing left or right, the bike jumped so much. And when I was first riding it, it felt like I wasn't riding. It felt like it was more of a contest between me and the bike to make sure I don't drop this thing. I don't fall off this thing. I mean, I just bought it, right? But then after the suspension, I ran the tire pressures that you gave me, and I immediately felt the difference. I jumped up and down on it. It's like, oh, that feels good. But what's crazy is, literally, this Saturday that just passed, I used the newer tire pressures that you told me, and I went that same route. We went to that same route up in the mountains, up in the twisties, and it felt great. And if I could just sum it up, this is crazy, no offense to anyone out there, but at first it felt like a fat person. Now it feels like an athlete. Like, that's the best, that's the best way I could put it. Like it, and what I mean when I say it felt like an athlete is, the bike was very maneuverable when I pushed it, but it was also very responsible. And the way it just ate up, shocks, it just felt like I was, in an athlete's body, as before. It felt like I was sluggish and I was very scared, no, barely having any balance. So it made a huge difference. And the last caveat I'll say about that really quick is, I rode more miles on the bike without it being tuned than I did after we tuned it. But in that very short period of time that we tuned it and I rode it, I literally began to say something that I said about the Ninja, where I begin to feel one with the bike. And I think that's so important. It began to feel like a well-worn pair of shoes that I'm familiar with.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
that's good.
yeah,
That's really good.
And what you're feeling there is your bike being set up for you.
Yes.
And a bike is sold worldwide. So you're going to go from a 300-pound Samoan down to, let's say, an Asian or a Thai person that are generally, their demographic is 5'4", 5'6", and maybe 120 pounds.
True.
And that bike is supposed to work for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how can it when you've got that massive range of just natural genetics?
Yes.
All you're doing as a new rider is adapting. That is all you are doing. And in adapting, you're surviving. So you're learning all the wrong habits.
Oh,
Once
good
the bike
point.
is set up, you can now focus on the correct skill set,
Yes.
relax, trust
Yeah.
the motorcycle, and do the right thing at the right time. And then the other piece about adaptation is you get tired, you get beat up.
Yes.
And you do the 100-year cycle, which is you buy the bike, you ride the hell out of it. It starts to hurt, so you ride it less. It hurts more. You don't ride it at all. You sell it and you pick up another bike, and you repeat the cycle over and over and over until eventually, hopefully, you stumble on a motorcycle that just happens to kind of be close to what you need. And then you ride that for longer, but you will sell that motorcycle and go get another one for exactly the same reason. So
Yeah.
via the education and training, I am trying to help people think critically.
Yes.
And treat the motorcycle like they would go to a tailor and go get a suit made for them.
I wear suits for work, and a lot of people compliment the suits that I wear, but it is literally because those suits are built for my body, right? They're custom. They're built from the ground up. And then I lost some weight. You can't tell now, I gained it back, but then I lost some weight, and the suits didn't fit as well as anymore. It looked like I was wearing my dad's clothes. So I had to go get them retailored, but once I got them retailored, I felt better. My confidence was more improved. And I think that, to use that tailor analogy, getting the bike tailored for your riding style, like you talked about, your weight, the suspension that's on the motorcycle, the type of motorcycle that it is, that definitely helps out a lot.
Yeah, so thanks for watching. Part 2 of that conversation, or the continuation of that conversation, will be coming within the next week or so. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Have a good day.